Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Lost Signals Reviews Film and Television. Today we are having a special, program here.
Yeah, we're on location.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to the Greater Philly Comic Con tomorrow, and we're reviewing Avengers: Infinity War, which is very apropos to a Comic Con.
Right,
works out nicely.
From Phoenixville, PA, where we're staying at our Airbnb location.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, take a look at the picture behind us.
The guest
Very nice.
studio for this
The painting.
episode. Indeed.
I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Scott Thurlow.
And I have only 5 of the Infinity Stones.
And Stephen Ramosi.
He stole them all from me.
All right, so I'll begin with the attempted humorous logline. The best laid plans of mice and supermen.
I like it.
Scott, would you like to start with the plot?
Sure. So this is the movie that Marvel's been leading up to for 10, 12 years, whatever it's been, since Iron Man. And it picks up where, I guess, Ragnarok left off. So I'll try to be broad about it, but it picks up after the Asgardian refugee ship is in space and encounters Thanos' forces. He enters and takes the Tesseract, the Time Stone, right, and devastates them.
Not the Time Stone, it's whatever the stone is in.
Yeah, I thought the Tesseract was space. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Time or space. One of the stones that they have. So yeah, then it's basically Thanos going around. Finally, his chess master games are coming to fruition. Going around gathering the stones and just fucking everybody up. Really, like all the Avengers show up. Spider-Man, every character who's been in the major, except for Ant-Man and Hawkeye, who they mentioned one line.
Did you say Heart Guy?
Hawkeye.
Oh.
Yep. Heart Guy also.
Heart Guy didn't
The
make an
forgotten
appearance
Avenger,
either.
dude. But no, it's them they sort of split up into various teams here and there. Like Thor goes with Groot and Rocket to do a side plot. Yeah, I mean, it's a big, huge ensemble piece, and it's them culminating in Thanos eventually gathers all the stones, or is even given one in Doctor Strange's case. So it's just that, it's the huge battle, the huge confrontation between Thanos trying to quote unquote bring balance to the universe by getting all the stones and killing off half the universe. But yeah, it's the hugest, combination of forces you've ever seen that Marvel has built up through, and this is what, phase 4 now, or phase 3, the end of phase 3?
I think it's the end of
whatever
phase 3.
Yeah, so it's just that. It's big action, but also a lot of decent character development. And of course, you see some characters interact who haven't yet. And like I said, they split them up very nicely. They've given them little groups to do this and that. They meet up with the Guardians as well. So yeah, all the characters there, and that's pretty much it. And Thanos wins pretty much at the end, at least in terms of if this is part 1 of the Infinity War.
Gets to enjoy some flamingos, and that's what's really important.
He watches the sunrise in the universe, which is devastated, but he has brought balance to, according to him. So I'm gonna give it a 3. We were discussing this precast that given that they had to juggle so many elements and so many characters, and we'll probably speak more about that in a second as well, but nevertheless, I think they did a good job of keeping it going. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It didn't feel that long. It felt actually pretty exactly how I thought it would be. I wasn't oh man, they better get to whatever, or this is taking forever, or even given that they, and the other side of the coin, given that they had so many characters, they weren't skipping over anything either, I thought. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna look at a pretty solid 3. Give them a lot of credit on how they brought it all together, and again, the climax of everything that's been building up. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty apt description. We obviously don't have time to cover everything that happens in this movie because we'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
But it's a 2.5 hour long movie, but I'm surprised it's not longer than that for how much they crammed into it.
Well, I think that the special edition will be.
I'm
it
sure.
definitely will. Yeah.
But the plot is really well done. kind of get a good sense of like the amount of time that's being covered. You get a good sense of like the ridiculous amount of space that's covered in this movie.
Yep.
Like
That's right. There's a lot of locations. Yeah.
yeah, you got Tony and Peter and Doctor Strange out in the middle of goddamn who knows where, like, you know, space on a
just said space.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. There's a bunch of different locations that like are all done pretty well, and they all have their own unique feel, which will go into style as well.
They
but
even
like,
revisit like when like they go back to nowhere
Yeah.
from Guardians.
yeah. It's just really well paced, I thought, and especially for how much jumping around it does, it doesn't feel like it does as much jumping around as the movie actually does.
Yeah, it's pretty seamless. I agree.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point that I thought of with this, how the style informs the narrative in this movie, which is something weird to say about a Marvel or a superhero movie in general. But this is paced so that you feel like it's a weird thing that if you've watched every single Marvel movie, you have more information than almost every single character besides Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure, yeah.
and it comes to light very quickly by just Thanos' attack. It seems very quick. It seems very, watching it, like, it's very disjointed. They establish him as a legitimate threat. They take
Right,
out
he starts
earlier.
fucking up shit
He
pretty
beats the
early.
hell out of Hulk immediately,
Yeah.
which is like Hulk is supposedly the strongest character in the MCU, basically.
I mean, this will be a huge spoiler review, so whatever. Kill Loki. Loki's been the prime bad guy, really, since the beginning of the...
Or at least behind the
Marvel.
scenes from very early on, yeah.
And he's taken out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And, like, Heimdall also with almost no grace to it.
Right.
Like, it's fitting in a way that he gets
yeah.
a death worthy of a warrior, but almost
They
like...
almost like offhandedly kill him.
And that's the thing, it's catching everyone off guard. And you're watching every single part of these disparate groups of Avengers attempt to come up with their own gambit for stopping Thanos. And they do a great thing where they play with the superhero tropes of, like, you see, like, oh, the group's coming together now, and this is when they're going to
Yeah.
beat them. Nope. Oh, the hero gets his weapon back. That's the magical thing that
That'll
has
turn the
made him
tide.
that superhero. Not really.
Yeah.
And every single turn when you think the hero, when in another Marvel movie the heroes would have won at that point, Thanos just bests them, and that's why I did my log line. Just all these great plans. Like, the only person left to choose whose gambit might work is Doctor Strange's, and I assume that's going to work, but after this movie, I don't know. You see the flaws of every single one of the heroes, and I'm going to give it a very strong 3 for playing with everything with your expectations.
Yeah, I have one more thing to add. This might be dialogue, but I will have to say, when you were speaking, you reminded me that, yes, the audience has more information than the characters in the story themselves, which is a good point. So I did like that they had Doctor Strange do a bit of exposition to explain, like, he had to explain to Tony and Banner, like, what the Infinity Stones were and, like, what they mean and why Thanos is getting them and what he can do with them. So that was a nice, like, if you didn't know or, like, forgot, like, whatever, like, it wasn't too overblown or anything. It wasn't, like, drawn out. Just like, hey, this is what they are. This is what they do. Here, he's gonna want them. And we gotta stop him.
And
let's do
visuals
that.
showing
Yeah.
a lot of it.
And they have,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
I like that little moment.
they have after Banner gets his ass kicked on the ship, they send him back to Earth, and he crashes into Strange's, you know,
Mystical sanctuary
house or whatever,
Yeah.
and they have him just basically say, "Hey, Thanos is coming. Like, we need to do something about it right now."
Yeah, and Tony's like, "Who's
Which-
Thanos?" And then they explain it.
No, I believe it was Doctor Strange. He goes,
No,
"Who?"
that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And again, once again, showing how all these heroes that conquer villains relatively easily in all these films are finally faced with something that they can't.
It's
they're
beyond
not
them, yeah.
prepared for.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It's an outside context problem.
This was a necessary film for Marvel to make to
Oh, absolutely.
continue this franchise.
No, I agree. So I think it deserves a strong 3.
I love it.
That's what we're
Yeah, I'm
gonna
gonna give it a 3 as well. I just wanted to mention that the whole characters not having all the information. There are a couple scenes where that comes up like pretty obviously, but one of the big ones is when the Avengers fight the Guardians when they first meet up, and like
Right.
you know they
Miscommunication.
they have no idea who the other is. They both think they're working for Thanos, and they're both chasing him down. It's like it's a great scene.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
a good
lot
way
of
to bring
fun
them together.
But like you know it highlights that exact point. It's like you guys don't know what the hell is going on, and Thanos knows everything.
And one of my favorite, I'm not as big a comic book fan as you guys are or were, but like in one of the Annihilation ones, Nova comes back to Earth, and it's the middle of Civil War, and he tries to like, hey, sorry, like this huge thing's happening in space right now, and they're like, oh, you have to go register for the thing. He's like, this is not
This
important.
is bigger than that shit.
And it really comes home that like they're so wrapped up in their
Own little politics.
Steve Rogers and Tony Stark are wrapped up in their own like
Yeah, well,
reasons that-
they're pretty fresh off of Civil War. They both don't really talk anymore at the beginning of this movie.
Well, I mentioned it's been a couple years, but he's like, since then, we're not really friends.
Yeah, and like I do like how this is gonna bring them back together to some degree, and like probably before they both die, because you know outside of the movie they're both coming up on their contracts, and
But so we were discussing that too, like mentally, like they'll be brought together and then die. Like,
Yeah.
obviously in the next one, or at least that's what we think. But
of course.
but regardless,
But yeah, so it's very interesting, and I would like to point out that at the end of this movie, the only Avengers that are left are the original ones, and like all the other ones kind of go away or
I
get
did
turned
not
into
notice
dust.
that until you mentioned it, and that's a good
which
call.
sets up like the death of a lot of them because they're the only ones that are going to be left fighting until the end. You know,
Hawkeye's gonna come in and save the day, guaranteed it.
he's definitely going to be coming back for the next one. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Captain Marvel too because she'll be in the next movie, and the Captain Marvel movie is coming out before the next one.
Yeah, of course.
So that'll be interesting.
But yeah,
All right. So on to themes with you, Stephen.
Oh, themes, huh? Well, there's a lot going on in this movie. But I think one of the big ones is like the idea of overpopulation, like sorry. I mean that's
it's
an obvious one.
yes.
And like, you know, Thanos like whether or not to describe Thanos as like an evil doer or something, a villain, like he's a great villain because you can understand his motives.
He's a well-intentioned extremist, pretty much.
And I really like that about his character. I mean, I read the comics too, and he's got pretty much similar motivation, except for in the comics it's about like his love of death, who is a character
I
Personified.
like this better because it gives.
It's more movie-y, it's more filmy and less comic booky in this way.
Yeah, no, I
like
know exactly what
the
you mean.
death thing worked perfectly in the comics, but I think they had to take that out for this. I think it would have just
agree.
been a little bit too over the top.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit of philosophy and ethics here, because Thanos is an extreme utilitarian.
That's what I'm saying.
You can kill two people to save, you can kill one person to save two people, that kind of thing. Actually, you go to the well-intentioned extremist. Yeah, it's very logical what he's going. It's heartless, but you actually see other points of view on this. There's a discussion between Vision
Yes,
and Captain
that's
America about can you sacrifice like one person to save? This is it's an argument over how
Many.
many people can you save to
Right.
kill one, and I think they come down to it that choice is important. That the problem with Thanos' logic is he's not giving people choice, because he goes about it saying, "I'm not picking and choosing winners here. I'm just randomly split people."
Well, that was
up
the
and
original
kill
plan
them."
on Titan, and just now applying it to
Yeah.
the universe
Yeah.
at large, I guess.
And, like that is a completely logical and non-malevolent
Sure,
way.
it's coldly logical.
Yeah, and he's more of a threat on that end than Ultron was, who should have been that like robotic, cold, logical thing. And so I don't know. It's that's an interesting discussion to have in what the ethics of saving lives are in a superhero film, because that's really a core element to these films.
No, you're right, and that's a good point, and especially because that topic is sort of like up your alley of academic studies and so forth. But it certainly is there, and the overpopulation thing is the one I was going to lead off with, because yes, it's obvious, but it's also interesting motivation. Like, I was going to say this humorously, like, I agree. Thanos makes a good villain, has a point in a sense where he's like, listen, there's only finite amount of resources, and if there's being outstripped by the needs of people who are not going to have them, then everybody is going to lose.
Right.
So my plan is to cull half of the universe more or less, and we'll have enough resources. So like, I'm not saying that killing off half the universe is a good plan, but I'm not saying it's not either. But I mean, yeah, I'm just saying that theme is attached to him because that was his motivation, and we'll speak more about that in perhaps antagonist. But either way, sorry, listen. Yeah, like I'm gonna give themes a 1 because they were both there and they were handled well, like I guess as embodied or sort of like driven that by Thanos. And also, you could say, like, coming together, like putting aside your differences, of course, like, but that's a theme that's been in a lot of Marvel movies. But not that I'm saying that's bad here, like, it pays off, and that leads into my second jokey-ish theme, where if you take a huge gamble on a franchise and it pays off 10 years later, then you pay all the returns in the world. Yeah. But no, the movie itself handles both the things you guys said and like sort of a combination of them quite well, and as personified by a number of the characters and exemplified by them and their speeches and their the way their characters already were, like for example, Steve and Tony and Banner, etc. So yeah, I'm giving Themes a pretty solid 1 on that front.
It's the trolley problem of the movie.
Yeah,
which is
should have said that. Yeah,
just thought of that.
That's pretty good though.
But I think another interesting thing that they go into is like facing your own death, like facing that which you can't possibly defeat. Like, right? Like at some point in this movie, basically everybody realizes that they have no chance to beat Thanos. They continue to fight like as heroes should or whatever, but like, I wish they had actually delved a little bit more into that, like understanding. I mean, there's just not time for it, but like understanding like this character's emotions when they realize that they don't really have a chance, right? Like he's got 4 Infinity Stones at one point, and like everybody's like, well, we got to stop him from getting that last one. It's like, good luck, But
I mean, that was their last ditch plan for sure. But
yeah, and
even that didn't work.
And it's like, and that's normally the point where like the heroes pull out like something out of their head, like a rabbit out of the hat or whatever. But it kind of seemed like when there was 25 minutes left in the movie, and I knew it had been going on for a long ass time at that point, and I was like, wow, that like. They are just going to end this and Thanos is going to win. Like, it can't go any other way at this point. And you kind of, as a viewer, realize that at the same time that all the heroes do, that you just have no hope of seeing them win again. And I think that's a really cool way to end a movie and like a really interesting way to. I did like
the dark ending for sure as well.
Yeah,
at least darker, bleaker.
It's a 1 for everyone for
themes. I think so.
Okay, on to me with the antagonist.
Overpopulation.
Probably. I guess you could say that Thanos is the antagonist, but I'm going to argue this in a way that he's the antagonist to the series.
To them.
He's the protagonist of this movie. You're following his storyline here.
And you get his backstory and his history. There's more of it.
Yeah, but that makes a good antagonist.
Yeah, though, it's his. This is his story. So I mean, like, yeah, he's not a good person. Yeah, he is the antagonist for the heroes we've all come to love. But yeah, like you're seeing his motivations. You're seeing his tragedies when he sacrifices Gamora. You see the heartbreak of that. But again, he has to do this.
Necessary means, yeah.
Do what he thinks is a benevolent act. I don't know. I guess you could also say so that would make the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy the antagonist. But I don't know. I guess Thanos is the antagonist.
Of course, like the movie like sets it up to be like. I do like your like the angle of like sort of the Roy Batty argument where he's the protagonist of Blade Runner, like more or less, which we did say on that review. But no, like I guess I'll play by the movie's rules, and I think he's one of the most memorable villains, like possibly one of the better ones that we've seen in the Marvel movie at large, because his threat is so literally universal, if you will, and he's effective at it. But also, like as we just said, you know his motivations, you understand like why he's doing what he's doing and what he wants to accomplish, and how he's going about it, and like all the again the background like chess work that he was doing like in all the other stories leading up to it. So yeah, he's like a world-ending threat, and they unite to fight him. So of course, like on that front, I think he was portrayed quite well. They did a good job with Thanos. They didn't like he wasn't like even though I liked the portrayal of Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse, he wasn't like the grandiose over the top. Like he was, but not to that degree. He wasn't chewing scenery per se. But yeah, of course he's antagonizing every single one of the heroic characters.
He's antagonizing the
universe at large, yes.
I mean, I think that so Marvel's had a bunch of good villains. They've had some forgettable villains as well, but Thanos is, I think, by far their best villain, and it has a lot to do with how they've been building him up for 10 years since. His first appearance was the first Avengers, right? I believe at the end of the first Avengers.
He was a stinger in that one. He was definitely a stinger in Guardians as well.
Yeah, and Avengers too, obviously. Yeah. But you know they've been setting this up for years and years and years, and I was worried that it was going to be a disappointment, but Josh Brolin does a great job playing him, and he is a really good villain. He's just like always. I think the mark of a really good antagonist in any movie or any work really is being able to understand their motivation and perhaps even like agreeing with it to an extent,
seeing their side of it,
which with Thanos like comes through in spades. It's really good, you know, and he's obviously has an incredibly well thought out plan he's been working on for a very long time, you know, as shown by the 10 years in the making thing, and he's just and he just has this like awesome level of power that is unrivaled anywhere, which you find out about immediately as soon as this movie starts when he fights Hulk, and it's just not even close, you know. He's just the best villain I think that Marvel has done yet, and I'm gonna obviously give it a 1 for that.
It's definitely up there.
So Loki aside, because he's a hero, villain character. I like their Marvel in general. Their more grounded villains like Killmonger and Baron Zemo. I thought this is the one kind of supernatural villain that they did perfectly.
Still, yeah.
About like grounding it as a believable character and like Ronan and the Accuser,
whatever.
Like,
I mean, he was a pawn of Thanos, anyways.
What's her name? Thor Ragnarok. Hela.
Yeah.
Hela was pretty good. As far as like supernatural villains go, you know.
I'm not disagreeing, but
Thanos had like the most presence, and he's perhaps the most memorable of the kind of great supernatural villains they had.
That's what I was going to say. Like his presence on screen is very palpable. Like it doesn't overshadow people, but he's menacing always. And I was going to say this one thing to add is that they don't give him like the villain idiot ball. Like, and of course, like as we said, retroactively because he's been planning all these years, but he doesn't make stupid villain mistakes. You know what I mean? Like he outwits and outfights everybody pretty much. So on that front.
And I also want to just give a shout out to the Black Order.
Yeah,
I actually liked, especially the priest guy with the magical.
Did they ever say his name? I don't remember that character's name.
I call him Voldemort.
Yes.
Okay.
But what's interesting is like it was almost minor victories when they defeated one of them.
Yeah.
But then you realize like
it's just a henchman.
Pawns to this greater villain.
Yeah.
Which made it a Pyrrhic victory. So
yeah,
I'm going to give the whole kit and caboodle a 1.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Scott, talk about the protagonist.
All right, every single Marvel character you've ever seen in a movie leading up to this, like there was like 20 of them, like more or less. So like
I think they said there were like 60 overall, 60 characters that you have seen before, including like the minor ones. And
sure,
stuff
like
that.
like Shuri and like the side characters and stuff like that. But like all the Avengers, all the Guardians, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, all those groups. So like I said, we sort of covered a bit of it in plot that. Because the movie has to juggle all of them, I think each of them gets enough time to shine. and I like how they mix it up, like I said, like throwing like Thor meeting the Guardians, and then like going off in Avengers with them, and like and splitting off teams between them. Tony and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange were their own little team, and so forth. So yeah, like, I mean, if you are familiar with the characters, then you already sort of have an idea of who they are and where they stand in certain issues. But I think they're as good as they've ever been. In fact, they've shown some growth. Like, I even like some of the more levity stuff and the rapport between them when, like, Peter is trolling Thor about his voice. Like, that was like a good joke. Or Thor was trolling Steve about, like, oh, I see you shaved your hair. Oh, they cut your hair. I see you stole my beard. Like stuff like that. Like, it was fun to see them meet up again. Like, when they see Banner, like, oh shit, you're back. Like, all that. And to your logline point, like, yeah, they all have these plans. Like, okay, if we do this, we'll go here, we'll get this, we'll get my new weapon. Like, in Thor's case, like, Banner's like, okay, let's try to do the Vision plan, see if we can destroy the stone, but leave Vision intact. And that doesn't work either. But they all have, on their side, they have legitimate plans that make sense on paper, might work, like, should work. They almost get the gauntlet away from Thanos at one point, but then, Peter gets pushed a little bit and fucks up their plan, like, because of he's emotionally attached. Just finds out Gamora was killed by Thanos. So, yeah, like they're all as good as they've ever been. So, with like they might have been like this is going to sound harsh to say, they might have been maybe the least interesting part. But of course, like they're necessary. There's no Infinity War without them fighting on the side of stopping Thanos. But like I said, like it's good to see them all return to their roles, and you do see how they've grown a bit, like between their various stories, like between Steve and Tony in Civil War, and even the relationship between Peter Parker, that is to say, not Peter Quill, and Tony and so forth, and all that. So yeah, they're all great, and it was, like you said, it was good to see the side characters like T'Challa, and they go to Wakanda.
I would call T'Challa a side character, but yeah, no, I mean like Shuri, and
right? But everyone attached to him, like his tribe, members and so forth, and the Royal Guard and all that. So yeah, it was fucking solid as hell, and if not like amazing, like they all did a good job. And it was like I said, I have to give the movie and the script and everybody credit for balancing it. Like I didn't feel as if any one part of the one team or any split off like was given too much time or too little time. So, but
I think they focused on certain characters who I would say represented the protagonists.
Sure, of course they were there, like Tony and Steve and so forth.
And even Steve, I don't think really had there's a major role, but like character plot wise, obviously it's Tony Stark, Thor, and the repercussions of the whole loss of Asgard and all that. Gamora maybe because she had a pretty in-depth plot line. All this.
Her subplot was very important.
Strange was in it a lot.
Yes, and again, I think his gambit is the most interesting one because it's the one that's going to pay off down the road. So I'm going to say that not every single Avenger here is a protagonist.
Okay.
Whether there was a few that really were like,
more of a focal point.
Yes, in this story.
I mean, you're still giving them a 1 or not? You're just counting like a smaller slice of them.
Yeah, because otherwise we don't have any supporting. Otherwise we have everybody.
It's either everybody on Thanos' side or everybody.
That was kind of the issue I was struggling with
on the side of good. I guess,
precast, but I see what you mean. I'm still giving like them broadly a 1, more of them a 1 than you, but still.
Yeah, I would say like so the important ones that you follow are like Tony in space. Like the Guardians meet the like main Avengers, right?
I was like definitely Thor, as he said.
Like Black Panther comes in kind of like late.
Start of the third act, we'll say.
Yeah,
well, they're part of the Vision, Scarlet Witch plot line, and yeah, both of them are definitely main characters in this. It just happens that there's other superheroes involved with their plot line.
Yeah,
true.
But yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody character-wise is pretty strong, especially on that side. There was a surprising amount of like in the characters that they focused on. There was a surprising amount of like, I don't necessarily want to say character growth, but like a little bit of development with all these characters,
exactly.
and like the seeing that happen was kind of nice. Like in their own little like every one of these characters probably had like what 15 minutes of possible development time and or 20 minutes or whatever, and they got stuff done in that amount of time with the script, and I thought that was
exactly.
pretty impressive. So
That's a good point.
I'm gonna give it a 1.
Okay,
Yep.
Steven, supporting.
Speaking of the conundrum,
So yeah, I mean, I guess it's like a lot of the I would you guys say that Peter Parker was a protagonist or supporting?
Supporting.
I think I'm going to
I
put
could
him
be
in the
convinced
supporting,
it's
role
supporting,
as
yeah.
well. So I feel like everybody had their all the main storylines had their
like sidekick characters. almost,
basically Peter
Drax certainly
Right.
was a supporting character.
everybody other than Gamora and Peter Quill are probably supporting on the
On the
even
Guardian side.
Rocket. He had his own little storyline. I don't know.
He was
he did.
he was sidekick to Thor though, kind of, but
Yeah, he might have been
gave someone for Thor to act.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, same exact deal for the supporting characters as for the protagonist, except for a little less character development in that arena. But you don't expect as much character development from the supporting characters. Side note: I really enjoyed seeing Shuri again. She's
Yep,
one of
for
my
sure.
favorite characters in the Marvel universe
Agreed.
now, and it was just
She's dust.
yeah. Well,
did she turn into dust? I don't remember if she was part of it.
I assume. So.
Yeah, they didn't show it
I
though.
don't remember.
think.
T'Challa's dust.
Yeah.
I don't know if Shuri went that way. I can't remember.
It's a bold move to get rid of what's probably your future.
Here's the thing. He doesn't have a movie before the next Avengers, so he'll be back.
Yeah, but he just had a movie previously. But yeah, I just see what you mean.
Yeah.
He was
Well,
he was
it's
the
only-
last biggest Marvel movie.
So between now and the next Avengers movie, it's only Ant-Man and Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to both those movies. But there's not
By the way,
it's not like Spider-Man has another movie that he has to be in, and it's not like spoiler alert, he turns into dust too. But it's
Nothing
not like
but
all those
ashes.
characters, they have time to come back, which they're definitely going to do in the next movie.
It's a bold move. They just get rid of everyone.
Yeah.
Could
We
extend
just kill half the universe.
It's a comic book movie.
We're firing everybody who has a long-term contract and keeping all these motherfuckers who are just about
Maybe.
to expire.
But for example, Bucky was there, but he's definitely a supporting character, and I like seeing him again.
Yeah.
Definitely same thing with Shuri. As you said, I agree with that. And yeah, so again, given that they have such a huge cast of characters, to keep going and juggle through and introduce and then have them something to do. Peter Dinklage shows. I didn't know he was going to be in this film, or forgot that he shows up as the dwarf forager guy who Thor goes to see get a new weapon from.
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Collector is there for 5 minutes, or I guess we
If
could even-
that.
Oh, we didn't. Well, you did mention it briefly, but I guess Thanos is henchmen. We're fine, little dragon guys that they fought here and there.
What
They didn't have a
dimension-
lot of characterization,
Yeah.
true, but they were still fine for what they were. But yeah, overall, if you
They were mini bosses.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
you can't beat. How are you going to beat the big boss?
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes?
exactly. But if you're cutting up tiers of X number of characters are the protagonist, and then they have this, even though Spider-Man would have been a protagonist in another movie or in his own movie, which he was in this case, in this story, he's more of a secondary character. They're all still perfectly fine and still deserve a 1. I think.
Everyone's got something to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
give them
exactly.
all a 1 for that.
Yep, I'll give him
I
a 1 for that as
would
well.
agree.
All right, dialogue. So one of the things I loved about this movie was how different characters interacted with people they've never met before, and some of the great comedy.
Some more levity
duos,
bits,
like
yeah.
Mantis and Drax.
Yeah,
still
yeah.
I forgot about Mantis. Yeah.
Are great. Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
all having conversations. There's a lot of good. It wasn't as witty as I think. What's the director who did Avengers 1?
Wasn't it
Singer
Paul-
or is it? God, I can't remember now.
wasn't it Paul Page? Oh, no, he's the
It's
know.
the actor. It's the director you really like.
Joss Whedon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Of course, his dialogue is snappier than anyone's. And
It's all wittier, I guess, but
Yeah.
But I think that
But this is a more
dialogue
serious
is really
story.
well done for they attempted to capture that, and I think they approached it. A number of times I was laughing a lot, and then it got really serious really quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a 1 for that. I think it's exactly what it needed to be for this film to work.
No, I agree. We briefly mentioned some of Thanos' in quotes grandiose speeches, but again, not too over the top. They still are grounded enough. And yeah, I did like the jokes, like the bits and stuff, the levity stuff, and then when it switched to like more serious, like darker stuff, that was really well handled as well. There were no, at least to me, cringeworthy or like head scratching, inducing interactions or anything like that. Yeah, it was all damn solid stuff throughout. And again, because they had to throw so much into a movie, like there was no, I felt they didn't like dwell on anything either too long.
It was there are probably, millions of possible dialogue combinations that could have come out of this movie. I think they did a lot of good ones. Like, I still want to see like Peter and Shuri just like bothering the shit out of Tony, like with all their science shit, like with all their ideas and stuff. I think that would be amazing. Maybe in the next movie.
They're all gonna be dead soon.
But yeah, like that. Peter Parker, that is. I keep forgetting there's two Peters.
Yes, I made that mistake earlier. So we were Spider-Man and Star-Lord then.
But yeah, there's so many awesome combinations that could still happen in the next movie or whatever.
Yeah, but shuffle them around.
But yeah, for the most part, I thought the dialogue was pretty solid, and it was like you said, it wasn't the snappiest. It wasn't as snappy as, like, I guess the original Avengers or something like that. But it was up there. It was pretty damn good.
No problem with it. It was damn solid.
So I'll give it a 1.
Me too.
Okay, Scott and his style.
Yeah, man, like big bombast, like the biggest bombastic stuff they've ever had because of the nature of the plot, as we said. And I think it all looked great. Like Thanos looked great, and Brolin did a good job voicing him. And like just the look and feel. Like, for example, I mentioned earlier that I liked that they went back to nowhere. They went to some other planet, wherever the planet that the Soul Gem was on, Soul Stone. Like you saw, like who was that keeper guy who kept the soul? Like I don't know who he was.
It was Red Skull.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just the guy who like burned.
No,
up.
he's like I chased after the Tesseract.
Oh shit, man!
Yeah.
Wow, I did not put that
So
together.
I wonder if they can bring the Red Skull back.
I guess I'm kind of an idiot, but I didn't put that together.
Good. It's possible.
It was a skull. It was
But I thought he was just like a dude, like.
it could be. I'm pretty
But
sure
that makes sense that you mentioned it. But no, like all the locations they went to, like of course the big battle at Wakanda at the end, that was awesome. Even the like from beginning to end, really. Like it opens with like I said, the Asgardian refugee ship in space, and Thanos' ship shows up, and then it shows up on Earth, and they have a battle there, a brief like beatdown battle, more or less. But yeah, every effect looked great, and just the shots, like the action. I was saying to you guys that I was a little concerned that because of the nature of it being so hugely stuffed with characters, that it might get like some of them might get sort of lost or a bit confused. Like, no, it was fine. I understood what was happening at all times in big fights, at least. And you had mentioned that you liked the fact that the forge, Peter Dinklage's forge, was a neutron star, and that was cool too. That looked really cool.
That was.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything looked great. I mean, it looks as good. Like it was the biggest. I think it was the second most expensive movie ever made at this point. I believe I saw that somewhere. The budget was huge, for sure.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And it shows. Like they did a good job. They pulled out all the stops. So
What I have to give them real credit for was this did not feel like they thought up the action set pieces first and then made a plot. Everything made sense for why they were.
Yeah, they were
where
concurrent.
were.
Like one did not take precedence over that. Yeah,
And,
good call.
Also, I just want one shot that really stood out to me: Vision's body after it turns into like the husk,
Like crumbled. Yeah.
like it's gray with the lush green behind it. Was very striking imagery. I thought. But then again, also Thanos throwing a moon on a planet was also a pretty striking imagery. So,
agreed.
Yeah.
No, man, it was all great stuff, and like I said, it was top notch.
Oh, sorry. One last point is that, and I mentioned this to you guys in the pre-guest, the fact that they showed the different powers of the Infinity Gauntlet,
Yes,
I think
good
was
call.
very important for me to grasp why he's going after every single one of them. Oh, now it makes sense. I see what they all do, and I was very impressed by it, especially the reality warping.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
cool. You're right. good
Reality,
call.
the time stone is obviously very important when Scarlet Witch kills Vision and then he brings him back.
Yep. If you could turn
And,
back
like,
time,
Yeah.
what you
Oh
did.
man, it's so cool. Like I love pretty much everything they did. The score was really good.
Agreed. I didn't even mention that, but you're right.
Just overall, just great music throughout, and just very mood setting. And yeah, it was an obviously very expensive movie, but it was all held together by the characters, and like that's an important thing. Like, no matter how much money you spend on effects and all that stuff, you need actors that can pull off
need emotional weight and
pull it off.
was
And
all
like
there.
Josh Brolin, I think specifically does a really good job as Thanos, like making you believe that this purple ass big giant fucking monster is
nutsack chin
like,
looking
yeah.
motherfucker, whatever Quill said to him.
yeah, is like a real threat to the universe, and he pulls it off nicely.
Well, the Russo brothers also should get a lot of credit.
Yeah.
They
I agree.
definitely
100%.
had the emotional punches in the former Captain America movies.
Yep.
And this one, they can handle the action sequences. They can handle
Just as well as
the character
yeah.
scenes. So,
Absolutely agree.
Definitely.
all right. And Steven, do you recommend this film?
I do recommend this film. I actually was going to say that I don't recommend this film if you don't know anything about the other movies, but I got my mind changed tonight by my mother, who said that she just went to see the movie and she fucking loved it. And I was like, I was expecting her to just have nothing but questions coming out of it. She was like, you know what? This, that's exactly what she said to me was, this was a much better fantasy movie than the most recent Star Wars. And I don't know if I mean,
I would agree with that though.
I think
Tell your mama
it's
said
probably
yeah.
better than Last Jedi, but like it does apparently it does its job well in explaining enough about what's going on that you don't really need that big background in Marvel movies to get it. And like I'm actually kind of surprised at that. It's going in as somebody who's watched I think all of the other Marvel movies. Having seen this, like I get so many references and like I get so much stuff there. Like
a couple of callbacks, not too many. And
yeah, it felt like if I didn't know all that stuff, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on. But apparently, that's not the case. So that's cool.
Well,
you know,
I think the important part, and this is why I'm recommending it, because I had the same feeling at first too, is that they do such a great job of explaining Thanos that you don't even know who he is,
Right.
because you know what he is doing, and you get all the powers. You understand what all of the stones do. Yeah, you probably have cultural osmosis of a couple of these people at least. So I would definitely recommend it. If anything, for watching things blow up, which is always fun to see.
yeah,
I don't know. I was going to say that's actually a good example of that. Like, of course, I recommend it if you're invested in the Marvel universe in any way whatsoever, because they do a good job like paying it off. But
sorry, not you.
but
there's a
also,
garbage truck
yeah.
backing up outside or something.
Yeah, we're in a different dimension. But also, yeah, like if you were just thrown into it, like I alluded to earlier, like they give you enough exposition, but not like it doesn't feel exposition-y. And because they show, in fact, and don't tell sometimes, like of what the stone's doing, like what's at stake and what's happening and why, then yeah, like you would probably enjoy it, like regardless. Even if, and you're right, like even if you haven't seen the Marvel movies per se, you probably know who at least who Iron Man or maybe fucking Captain America is. Of them, Spider-Man. So yeah, I recommend it either way, but especially this is like it really is a service to the Marvel fans and pays it off very, very nicely. And I would love to see it again soon, even in theaters, because it looked great on the big screen. So definitely worth it.
This was a bold risk, and it paid off for them.
Agreed.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
Yeah. Bold move, MCU, and I think it did work out for them this time.
All right, any thoughts?
I think we said everything. Yeah, man. I think we're giving it a perfect 10.
Yeah, we give it a perfect 10. I'm going to do the math. And I think it deserves it because it is the culmination of a decade-long experiment that worked. And I'm shocked that it paid off the way it did.
I don't know if I'm shocked, but like I'm very satisfied that it did. And, I could give them a lot of credit, like I said, for building all the back road to it and for paying off, culminating it in such a way. So
I'm satisfied. I'm only half satisfied though. I'm very much looking forward to the second half of this Infinity War that we got going
that's the
on.
whole point. They want you to look forward to it.
We might go back and have to if they screw up the second one, we'll have to retroactively say
We'll
see.
Let's hope they don't. But it's we don't have to wait that long. It's coming out next year.
That's true. So as it stands, though.
Well, I'm Jonathan Niemancer, and if you're our YouTube watchers, if you're wondering why I'm wearing a vest, I had a symposium today. Scott Thorla.
I just thought he was Doctor Who. See you next time.
And Stephen Rossi.
Have a good night.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Niemancer. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or Mott's?